Okay, so this is part 2 of our series about the energies that are going on right now. And I have Z and Whit with me here today. So if you have not seen part 1, please go back to part 1 and watch that first. Thank you. And I'll link it below, and maybe I'll figure out how to put it at the end of the video. We'll see. So we're going to talk about the ego in this section. And what is the ego to you? What is it doing for you? And what is it doing to keep you in one place, basically? So how would you guys define the ego? These questions.
I would say the first thing that comes up for me is that it's an entity in and of itself, a consciousness of being, manifestation of a thought form that has come into play for learning purposes. So like that's how I see it. That's how it moves with me and around me and not around me as well.
Yeah. A lot of I feel into it and see it a lot like that, and it has very strong desires, wishes, needs, wants. Yeah. It can be very loud or it can be very subtle. A lot of it's loud. But
Yeah.
the subtleness I found has a lot to do with how much I'm paying attention to it or not. So
yeah. So we are in the middle of a thunderstorm, so that's why it's very dark all of a sudden, and rainy. So basically, oh, and somebody's pulling on the side of my trailer. So basically, when I think about the ego, I'm thinking about polarity. Like I do see it as the devil versus the angel kind of thing. And the angel's very quiet. That's your higher self. And they start out very quiet and they're like, hello, can you listen to me? You know, like, and the ego's like, hello, I expect you to do what I want so that you stay stuck, really. And it's all in the name of safety, is where the ego came from. But fear is a construct, just like the ego is a construct. So to me, I'm like, we don't need it. Now, if you need to run away from something, great. But if somebody is being rude to you in traffic, like giving you rude gestures, or if something's happening that's irritating you, why bother to get worked up? And that's the ego coming in, creating drama. And I'm really not a fan of drama.
No.
Yeah.
Neither am I.
Yeah.
If we take it back to like human consciousness and the actual physiology and biology, it is that component that was technically the lizard component that's now shifting its way out, but that was that component that came in to create the survival piece, where it was there to actually be, okay, we do need to actually run away. Now it's just shifting all the way out. It covered up consciousness and who we are. It's basically a part of the facet that helped us forget who we are because of the survival piece.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, survival takes it down. The thunder is like rain, it's raging out there.
I can't hear it from this end.
Oh,
I don't know
good.
if the audience will be able to hear it, but yeah.
I have my
can't
mic.
either.
Okay.
Other than it looks like you're about to go up in Twister type situation.
The background is like,
I'm like, ooh. As Honey goes up in a Twister.
Yeah, it's funny. So, yeah, the ego, like, I feel like we've all been through it massively over the last month and a half. It feels like it's been really big, and we're kind of coming out of it now, but it's been right on the surface in a big way. And there have been a few people who kind of succumbed to the ego too through this process. And I think that's, maybe you have a few less friends, maybe, whatever. has gone on during this process, but we are getting through it, and it really needed to happen. So I'm glad it's happening.
Mhm. Yeah. Essentially, like what the human collective consciousness is moving towards of things. So there won't
So,
be that facet that's continuation. So like, it's gonna be transmuting itself and alchemizing itself into other energy, that growth and expansion.
Mm.
okay, so most of the thunderstorm is past, you guys, so we're going to continue. And Whit had a question. Hopefully she remembers.
Yeah. We were talking about kind of like as the ego kind of shifts differently and shifts out more, like a question that popped in is, I guess, have either of you started daydreaming, thinking, imagining what that kind of existence would even look like? And like, I know it's kind of a big question and it's gonna shift and change a shit ton because there's so many variables, but I was just curious, that popped in and I was like, this could lead to an interesting conversation. So
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I feel like I've been doing it incrementally because I did what was called the death of ego, but through the shadow healing and the inner child healing and all that, it's like each part of that gets rid of a little bit more of the construct of the ego. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm just kind of living it. Then
mhm.
it gets more fun and more free all the time.
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like with anything very deep and deeply embedded into our nervous system, like all our constructs have been, and our higher perspectives and souls really trying to be open and compassionate to what we're learning as humans, and also like, hey, this isn't going to work for too much longer, right? Um, it's a letting go of something that has protected us for a very long time. And that's where I see like right now where things are at with that. So for me, it's like, what is it without that control? And since my body doesn't have any parameters for that kind of freedom, like it just hasn't experienced it yet. And then it tries to bring in like stories or like, what is that going to feel like? And that for I mean, that is how the universe works. It is that like mysterious, unique, curious, like, I have no clue. So I'm just going to be open to what that might be and what that looks like. So that's been my experience with it. Like, is I don't exactly know what it's going to be like without that piece in humanity and what that feels like. All I know for myself is that like the more that I get the hint of like freedom, like, oh, this is less in a box. This feels a lot freer to me. Like I am in more communication with humans and souls that I want to be with. Those tiny little pieces of gratitude are what is fully shedding that ego even more. And so it's just small increments of being able to take it in.
Yeah. For me, the incremental piece has been so helpful with it. And I think about like, it's less of those fear-based knee-jerk reactions. And an example of this that I talked about on like TikTok recently is like, I got pulled over by the police recently and got a speeding ticket.
Yeah.
And I'm looking back to when that's happened in the past, and I did have that knee-jerk fear response of like, uh-oh, like what's gonna happen? How am I gonna pay this ticket? Like, why are you attacking me with this? Like, there's so many other people speeding, like just like all those things. And my response this time was so calm, like to the point where I was like, what? Like I was shocked at my response. Like I almost kind of was laughing, not like at the police officer, but just in general and just kind of in a state of acceptance. I'm like, okay, this is a part of my reality right now. And okay, period. And so for me, like having those experiences like happen in my awareness and I see my body response, like I was not heightened, my heart rate did not go up. There was no part of me that was activated that I could sense. in that
Mhm.
moment, I was like, oh, okay. So for me, that's kind of how I'm just really grounding that like ego shift experience, like, and how I'm
Yeah.
witnessing it and seeing it play out. So
Mhm. I think we set up little tests for ourselves too. Like,
yeah,
so what are you gonna
totally.
do? Did you figure it out yet? Do
Yeah,
we need to
yeah,
do
yeah.
a little more work? You
Look at
know, so you pass
this.
that. Yeah.
Oh.
Mhm.
Let's put this on the plate and see.
So
Yeah.
good. So good.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't really see anything else in here that we need to talk about the ego. Do you guys have anything else?
Mm. No, again, I'm gonna go just a little into practicality for those of you who are like, I don't exactly know now, like what to do with this or what that looks like. Just be very curious about what the ego is and what you've read and what you've learned for yourself. And question yourself, like, what is that? What does that feel like to me? I don't know if
Mhm.
that's something that I actually need anymore. Okay, because the more that you do question that, the more that your body is going to be like, you're right, I really actually don't need that. Okay. And being open to receiving more of what feels free to you is a good place to start with this. Even if you're writing it down, if you're like, okay, hey, look, how am I more free today than I was, I don't know, dot, 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 how many, whatever years ago? I'm like lifetimes at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Because the freedom is the hint of medicine, energy, our essence of what we're doing here.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay. So more of that.
Yeah.
And we're just questioning yourself of what the ego is for you. Okay, is this your own personal experience, and your perspective here is the most important.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I trying on different relationships with the ego, like I know it can be tempting to just immediately be like, get away from me, get away from me, get away from me. And that might be something you want to explore, right? Like pushing it away and seeing how that feels. And I know for me, sometimes if I befriend it a little bit, even if my end goal is like, not feeling those knee-jerk responses and all that, but like bringing it closer for a little bit to like look at it and sit with it and be like, okay, what are you feeling unsafe about right now? Like, what is this? So for me, it's been playing with those different dynamics with it before I push
Yeah.
and flush.
Right. And the ego, it could be like a garden gnome or it could be like a dragon, depending
Yes.
on how much you feed it. So remembering that,
Exactly.
like how much energy do you give to your ego? And also
Absolutely.
when you feel it in your body, like it feels like
Yep.
anxiety and stress. So when you feel that coming
Yep.
up, you know your ego is about to pop up
Mhm.
unless you start talking to it and dealing with it.
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was good. Thank you guys.
Hey, absolutely.
Yes.
Thank
So fun.
you. Okay, we will see you in the next one, everybody. Bye.
Goodbye.